want to ask you which aspect of your character which was the most fun, to explore for you both.
Ooh, which aspect was most fun? My character was a bit of a dick. I don't know, how do you say that in Italian?
Well, in a polite way, yeah. I don't know. Because, we use a lot of bad words, so...
Yes. Yeah, so my character...
Cattivella, let's say this.
Casiba, I like, okay. Yeah.
Cattiva, that one, yeah.
She's that. And I had so much fun with that because I think sometimes I want to be that, but someone has to let that out of me, so... Yeah.
I think I had a lot of fun... being a New Yorker, sort of being able to play like a tough New York cop, because I think I grew up in New York my whole life, always like avoiding the cops and sort of getting to take the other side of it and getting into that mind was kind of fun. And just playing a mom to a rebellious kid, that was a really fun thing to get into because we had a lot of like emotional scenes that we could play with each other, and she's so incredibly talented and present, and so I had a lot of fun doing that too.
So obviously we have some supernatural stuff in the show, but there is even a thriller aspect. So I want to ask you, which aspect was the most scariest one for you when you read the script, and which one was the scariest to play?
Oh, the scariest. I have to deal with the haunted car a lot, and obviously it was scary physically. I would say I don't know if I can spoil this. I don't think I can. There was a monster that one of the people turns into, and it's very gooey. And seeing like the skin move, I was like, that's not how skin moves,
Yeah, that was creepy. Yeah. I think working with all the special effects, like I've never had an opportunity to do that before. I've not done horror. That genre is new to me, and so working with the stunt people and the special effects and having to use the imagination of like being terrified of the things. That was really interesting and fun.
Yes. Yeah, I actually wanted to ask you something about the special effects, because I imagine you have to use a lot of your imagination. So how was it? And how was when you actually watched the show? You were surprised, by all these aspects, because you were kind of acting in the void without knowing, yeah.
Yeah, there was a ton of stuff that, you're just acting surrounded by green screen, wall to wall, or, you're physically like something's coming through you in some way. And it was kind of hard, but it's so fun. It's so freeing.
It was fun. And we had like the stunt people, the people who were I can't spoil it, but the stunt people were so real. They were actually quite scary, even though they weren't in full, their thing.
Yeah.
They were so committed to it, and they really threw themselves into it, figuratively, literally. And so it was really wonderful to work with such a talented group of like stunt men and women. That was intense.
Yeah.
Since the spoiler part is quite difficult, I want to ask you an easy question, because if I say Goosebumps, which is your most precious memory, which is your relationship, of course, with this beautiful masterpiece?
Yeah, I would say for me personally, I grew up reading Goosebumps. So coming into this world was so incredible, and I'm a huge action fan, I'm a huge horror fan, and I'm a huge reader. So, stepping onto the set and seeing these massive, they did such a good job, the production team, building out these huge sets that were so real, and you walk in and you touch the walls and you're like, oh my God, it's cold, and I feel like the creep in it, And also, of course, working with her, she's just a delight every single day. So
we had a lot of fun, and even as much as the sets were super cool, we also shot so much in New York City, like on the streets, and so it was like nighttime, and it was just, New York's the coolest city, and it was just really, really beautiful to be able to shoot on location so much.
Okay, one last question. I want to ask you, what do you think of the show and the fact that I guess it is really a good show because it explores even, the bad of human souls, we can say. We see, obviously, the supernatural aspect, but there are a good construction, I guess, of characters. Sometimes they're scarier, than supernatural things. So I want to ask you something about this.
Yeah, I mean, I think you spoke to that a lot. The show has a lot of heart, and I think like at the core of it is this incredible ensemble of actors and sort of how these kids come together. And you're right. It's like they're battling against this other thing, but it just brings them all together, and it shows like the spirit of sort of working together as a team, and like what can happen. Even she and I, we have so many difficulties in our relationship, but ultimately we come together and we find that sort of strength within each other. And so I think that was really across the board with the cast too.
Yeah, and I think that's what's so great about Disney and about shows like this is that they're really like open for everyone to watch, and they teach so many beautiful lessons, and it's also really fun to watch. So yeah, it felt like such a gift to work on a show that felt so real and so supernatural at the same time.
So there is some bad guy in this room, I can say, since watching the first episode, it seems like it. So I want to ask you, which aspect was the most fun to play for you in the show, and which was the most challenging one for each one of you?
I mean, challenging for me, like I don't like heights. So we had a couple scenes where we had to be pretty high up in certain situations. That got me a little bit. Yeah. Mm-hmm. Yeah. I don't know what else.
I think my most challenging scene was also my most fun scene. I think there's a monster that I had to fight, and I also had this, without giving too much away, I had this really strong, my character had a really strong emotional connection to this monster, and just being able to like kind of decide between like how do I fight you while also like loving you is actually kind of crazy.
Yeah. There was a lot of crazy stuff that happened. I think my most fun kind of space was like my character CJ. He's this really fun, nice, inviting, warm guy. And so being able to come in every day and play a character like that, like it lifts your spirit. It's really fun. But I would say also the most challenging thing for me was learning how to act in this like CGI world where, you're not always acting to a real thing. You may have a piece of tape on the wall and it's like, use your imagination. Just think that there's something there,
Got it.
But
it was also rewarding coming out of it, knowing that like, hey, I can do this,
But speaking about the special aspect, of course, I guess it was challenging, but was it fun? And how was it when you watch it? Did you imagine the scene like this, or were you surprised, by the scene itself?
Oh my God, it was. Yeah, I mean, it's really crazy because sometimes we know what the monsters look like and sometimes we don't. So sometimes, like Elijah said, we are acting to a piece of tape on the wall. And sometimes someone with an iPad will come in and be like, so this is what the monster looks like. Like, this is what you're reacting to. And I'm
really?
Like, oh, got it. So you just kind of have to like, bloop, take that out and bloop. Just in your imagination, just imagine like everything that's going on. But I think I always found that like super, super fun. And it's always so fun to see like the finished project and you're like, whoa, that actually makes sense now. I'm not just looking silly.
And speaking about Goosebumps, so first, it is a legacy. I want to ask you, which is the memory that comes to your mind if I say Goosebumps, which is your relationship, with all the books?
Oh my God.
Yeah, I mean, growing up, I went to the Scholastic Book Fair in school, and so I have quite the connection with Goosebumps from a young age, and so now to be in the series is pretty awesome. So yeah, I mean, it was a dream come true, really.
Yeah, I feel like right now, if you say Goosebumps, I just think of like my current reality of like, this is actually so crazy. So I feel like that memory kind of like overpowers everything. But when I think of like my childhood, if you say Goosebumps, I just think of like, I just think it's so iconic visually as well. So like the cover art of like all the books, like that's just like the first image that I just see in my mind. Just the original cover art is just like killed it. Tim Jacobus, shout out. Like that is amazing. Like so great.
Yeah. I grew up in Iceland, so we didn't have all these books growing up. I think we had like two or three that were like roughly translated into Icelandic, so I could kind of follow it. It wasn't until I moved to the States that I got like the actual like language of Goosebumps fully and like fully comprehended that. And I was really into it at that point. So to get to do this is insane.
One last question. Of course, your three characters are really layered. I guess they are the more complex characters, maybe because they kind of add a lot of shades, you know. So I want to ask you, do you think, obviously we have supernatural aspects, but even the human soul sometimes can be bad? I want to ask you something about this. I was for you, you know, to explore this aspect of your characters that sometimes can be more scary, we can say, that the monster itself.
Wow.
Yeah, I think that, you know, I think all of our characters kind of have this like good and bad side to them, which I feel like, you know, I feel like any human kind of also has like better parts and whatever, you know what I mean? There's some things to work on, but yeah, but I really love that. I feel like all of our characters are very layered. Like I feel like we definitely have a lot going on in the season, and for Frankie, it's very much like she's just trying to manage all her different interests and her different issues, and you know, she's working full time and she's kind of forced to raise herself, and because her mother works full time and all that, while still fighting a monster, but then while still dealing with her romance issues, and it just becomes this whole thing. But it's really fun to play out.